In the world of Westeros, where blood and intrigue mingle, and thrones are built on treachery and courage, our journey begins in the first season of Game of Thrones. A race for the throne brings together the great families in a complex web of politics and danger. In the north, House Stark tries to uphold honor and justice. Meanwhile, in the capital, the royal court is filled with intrigue and deceit. In the east, Daenerys Targaryen seeks to reclaim what her family has lost. Every step, every decision, changes the fate of the kingdoms of Westeros. We begin at Winterfell Castle, with Ned Stark, the patriarch of the family, a man who values honor and duty. He lives with his wife Catelyn and their children, Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran, and Reck, as well as his illegitimate son Jon Snow, who finds himself searching for his place in a complex world. Life in the north is relatively peaceful, but the events to come will change everything. King Robert Baratheon visits them with his family to ask Ned to become the king's hand, the king's right-hand man in the capital. Despite his love of peace in the north, Ned feels obliged to accept the offer, ignoring the danger that awaits him in the capital. Meanwhile, danger lurks in the north, far from human sight. Mysterious monsters emerge beyond the Great Wall, white undead creatures against which no one has experience, threatening the security of the entire kingdom. Jon Snow, who decides to join the Night's Watch, begins his training on the Great Wall and discovers that life there is not just about protecting the border, but about facing supernatural forces that cannot be ignored. Upon arriving at King's Landing, Ned finds himself surrounded by intrigue and deceit. The Lannister family controls the court. Queen Cersei, her sister Marjorie, and finally Tywin, who possesses unparalleled cunning at court. Ned begins investigating the death of the king's former hand, uncovering secrets about King Robert's supposed children. The shocking truth reveals that the children are not of the king's blood, but rather the result of the queen's affair with King Tywin Lannister. As Ned tries to uphold his honor, he finds himself trapped on all sides. Every move requires careful consideration, and every word could cost him his life. Intrigues escalate, and Ned begins to understand that honor is not always a guarantee of survival, and that the throne binds friends and enemies in a complex web from which no one can escape. Jon Snow, the illegitimate son of Ned, decides to join the Night's Watch at the Great Wall. There he faces a harsh life, learning lessons in patience, strength, and loyalty. He gets to know his fellow soldiers and endures rigorous training, learning that the Watch protects the Wall not only from human beings, but also from mysterious forces that have been hidden for decades, the White Dead, and monsters that return from ancient times. Jon gradually grows in his understanding of the world and begins to build his character, following in his father's footsteps, but he learns that nobility and honor alone are not enough to survive. In the east, we follow Daenerys Targaryen, the exiled heir to the throne, as she marries the powerful warrior duke, Drogo. Daenerys embarks on a journey away from the world she left behind with her new husband, striving to survive, gain power, and build loyalty. Through suffering and the loss of loved ones, Daenerys begins to discover her inner strength. Gradually, she transforms from a vulnerable, powerless girl into a figure capable of influencing the destinies of others, and even begins to develop a vision to reclaim the throne her family lost. Daenerys represents emerging power, while Ned represents honor and tradition, and thus the first season begins to outline the major conflict lines: the North, the capital, and the East. The first season is full of betrayals and surprises. Ned, after discovering the shocking truth about the king's sons, tries to protect the kingdom and those he loves, but he falls victim to an elaborate conspiracy. Ned Stark's death is a shock to the kingdom and to viewers, showing that even noble figures can fall prey to the ruthlessness of politics. This event sets the stage for greater conflicts and reveals the true nature of Westeros. No one is safe, no one is secure. The first season ends with major shocks. Ned dies in the capital, leaving his family to face their fate in the north. Daenerys recovers from her loss and begins to gather her strength to return stronger. The Wall North faces previously unknown threats, with the rise of the White Dead and supernatural dangers. Every character is now in a new position. Every alliance has shifted, and every decision has had its consequences. The season finale is not the end of the story, but the beginning of a larger and deeper conflict, one that will continue into the following seasons. The first season of Game of Thrones laid the foundation for a complex world of power, betrayal, honor, and blood. Characters were tested, and choices were always between right and wrong. As the season ends, we realize that in Westeros, honor is not guaranteed, power is not always fair, and everything is subject to change. The first season is a prelude to a vast world, full of conflict and surprises, where every step, every decision, and every betrayal alters the course of history.